Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 73 of the Austin Downbeat. I'm Kat, your host. Thanks so much for joining. And we have survived ACL Fest. Weekend one, weekend two are over as of last night as I record this. And it was absolutely wonderful. And the weather could not have been more perfect after a pretty rough summer, right? So congrats to all the local Austin bands that played ACL. That's a big step for a band, for a musician, for an artist, for a creative's heart. So congratulations. I know how special it is to be on a stage at that festival. And we had plenty of Austin beloveds and several that have been on the show that got to play. So congratulations. Let's do a rundown of those that are playing. I think all of Austin's taking a little bit of a deep breath, but here is a list of folks that are right back at it. And this covers October 17th through the 23rd. I will also say, I don't know much about cars and racing them, but at CODA, we do have Formula One and then something like a Grand Prix, something. But that's October, that's Friday through Sunday. So you will have people playing, like big people, I think, playing at CODA. So go check that out separately. Otherwise, on the 17th, we have Kelly McWee at Continental Club. On the 18th, Ben Folds is at the Paramount Theater. West Texas Exiles are doing their residency at Continental Club. On the 19th, Harvest Thieves are at Waterloo Records. And you know what that means. When people play Waterloo, they have something out and they'll have another show later this week. My pal DZ Brown is at the Neighborhood Kitchen and Yard in Bastrop. Nice to see him on the roster here. On the 20th, Scott Collins is at the Omni Hotel downtown. Tomar and the FCs are at Seaboys. On the 21st, David Ramirez is at Duet's Texas Club. That's a new spot that's opened up. Deer Tick is at Mohawk. On the 22nd, Guy Forsyth is at Devil's Backbone Tavern. Brian Pounds is at Saxon Pub. And the Dead Coats are at Hotel Vegas. And that brings us to the 23rd, which is Monday. So you have a couple residencies. Plus, Allie Holder is at Geraldine. So your residencies, remember, Monday Night Supper Club at El Mercado South. Brian Wolf is at the Driscoll, and Bob Schneider's doing his thing at Saxon Pub. Okay. My guest for you this week is Alain Paradis, also known as Holy Wire. I am a big fan of this guy and what he does and how he moves and just his whole jam. We have a wonderful conversation that kicks into high gear of candor and also just honesty about performing and the reality of performing and kind of the nooks and crannies of performing live in front of an audience and our little friend, the ego in our head and how that kind of plays a part. I love this conversation with Alain. I love what he does. He has a new video out for his song Worse for Wear, which is awesome, on his website. My favorite, though, is the genre that he has created for himself, and it is as follows: art punk, cold wave turned hi-fi, synth pop. And I think that's about as perfect as it gets. Please enjoy my conversation with Alain Paradis, aka Holy Wire. Right. Alain
Yep.
Paradis. Yes, I did it
All right.
right.
Perfect.
I know. Yay. Holy Wire is the name of your band. It's welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've really been digging into your music and um, I'm a fan. I'm a child of the 80s, born in the,
Sure.
mid 70s. So the 80s really, came at the perfect time in my life and certainly also being a music lover and that being a big part of my life. So I just love hearing what you do because it does fit inside of that really well. And I love the fact that that is new now too. Like it's not the same as what it used to be. But for those of us that come from a certain generation, it's beautifully timed because it just feels like home for some of us, you know?
Sure.
Um, so let's talk about, first of all, I love the the descriptor of your type of music. So art punk, cold wave, turned hi-fi synth pop.
Yeah.
You couldn't keep it short. I love that it's long. We're
Oh yeah, no, it's I have to embrace pretension sometimes.
I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
no use being
Um,
easy about things.
it's what?
There's no use being easy about things.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it so much. I mean, all of that really kind of fits. Talk a little bit about why this genre and how that lines up with who you are and what comes out of you. Because it does seem so like I watched your video for Worse for Wear, which I
Mhm.
love that song. But I just like the way you move and the way that video is, it just seems so in alignment with like what you're meant to be doing. So can you talk a little bit about that adventure for you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, that video isn't actually officially released yet, so you got a sneak peek.
I did
But
go on your website, yes.
yeah. um, but yeah, I mean that my relationship to the genre, I think, is sort of like a thing that often happens with people, whereas like with musicians especially, and genres where like I was born in like 83.
Mhm.
So that was, I don't know, there's I'm trying to remember some of the releases that happened that year, but it's like I was sort of too young to really get on
Mhm.
the whole, to ride the wave of pun intended, of, like new wave and especially like early stuff and, like Joy Division and New Order and DAF and, these bands that I really love now. And I think it's sort of like you reach a certain point, you reach, your later kind of adolescent years, your later teenage years into your 20s, and, you're kind of like searching for a musical identity. And, that's sort of like that decade that sort of just went out of style when you were a teenager. Then, the sort of like decade recycle thing starts to happen where people start reappropriating the thing. And,
Mhm.
I think that's sort of what was going on for me. And especially, kind of like into my 20s and stuff, people, like all these musicians were kind of like excavating and, finding all these kind of styles and relics from the past that were like cool to kind of like show off again and use as kind of like cultural cash to, you know, uh, yeah, just to kind of like synthesize into their art. Um, so I think that's sort of like what it was for me, was just, coming back to the sort of the thing that I had just missed, 'cause
Mm.
it's like, I was there during the 90s and the whole grunge thing and everything, and all the Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears and all that. Um, but and like P Diddy at the time, Puff Daddy and Mace. No one ever talks about Mace anymore. Um,
Oh yeah, you're right.
with the dollar sign,
Yes.
no one speaks of him.
We
Um,
should we should speak of him more.
yeah, well, we have already. We've broken the vow of silence that was taken.
Love it.
Um, so yeah, I think, kind of getting past that and then like looking to the past, it was sort of like, there's no greater sense of FOMO that you're ever going to have than for the decade that you just missed. It's
Yeah.
like the party that you can never go
Oh,
to was like the one that was like, in the decade before you were born or before you were of age to really, you know, enjoy it.
yeah. So when did you start? I know your story as far as like how you got to Austin,
Mhm.
but when did that start? When did music and performing and writing and when did that start for you?
I mean, it started when my sister taught me chopsticks on the piano when I was 8 years old. But I mean, like, I don't know, because I've always been all over the place, didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a teen, but I kind of like always wanted to play music, wanted to be involved in music. I studied music in college, and but I said, I spent a lot of my 20s just kind of like drifting around and, trying to kind of get into audio engineering and like work at a studio and then like work in like AV tech and stuff, but not really like successfully being in bands and not really like ingratiating myself into the music community in any significant way, because I think it almost like it's something like I aspired to, but it felt too far away from me and I just wasn't taking any concrete steps to make that happen.
Was there something holding you back from that? Was there
Just
anything that
kind
you
of
could define?
a general, sort of like lonely 20s male angst and like social anxiety and weird existential you know the area that I was in,
Mm,
of just, I don't know, being fearful of like stepping into like a new comfort zone and like jumping into a world that I wasn't really like a part of and wasn't like really friends with the people that were a part of it. And yeah, I don't know. I just kind of spent my 20s just, I don't know. I don't know what I was doing.
yeah.
Uh,
But that's what 20s are for. I mean, if it's gonna happen, don't we kind of want it to happen in the 20s?
yeah, but music is a place where
Mhm.
you know the scale of what's considered young and what's considered old is like shifted by at least 5 to 10 years compared to like a lot of other
Yeah.
areas and everything in entertainment, I think.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'm fucking 40 now. Sorry, can I curse? Is that like
Yes, yes,
okay?
you
Cool.
can.
All right,
Well,
awesome.
I will tell you, I'm 7 years ahead of you. And I
Mhm.
will tell you that um like I've been 40 and I've been on the door, knocking on the door of 40. And I will tell you, it's good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good. I feel like, and maybe this fits in with kind of your path, just with yourself as I had with myself. I felt like in these 40s is when I really went from like thinking and saying something is true to something actually being true. And that's like trusting myself, not just saying I trust myself, but showing myself that I actually trust myself. Like the lessons, the groove was deeper
Hmm.
in the record in the
Yeah.
40s. It sucks because I still feel 18, and I wish I had what I have now in my
Hmm.
40s when I was in my 20s, because I mean, I'd be unstoppable.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I just want to tell you from the from up the hill here.
Yeah.
Come on up, it's fine.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'm just, like at this point, I'm just like, oh, fuck, I'm 40, I'm just doing it, like what, like
Yeah.
there's so much anxiety to have about, you know, being a musician or, probably same thing for like actors and stuff too, of like, like where you are and the age that you are doing it. But, at a certain point, it's just like, well, this whole time progressing thing has been happening the whole time and it's not going to stop. And so just like,
Just
I
do it.
have no option but to just like do whatever I'm going to do and not, all the worrying about it just takes up more time that you could be
Yeah.
using doing other shit.
And let me just interject too, because I realized, and I was just having a conversation in an interview last night with an artist who is on the precipice of really great, wonderful things. And
Mm,
she is speechless at the fact that people are even listening to her music. So from
mm,
her angle, I'm standing 2 feet away from her. From her perspective, she's kind of like, what is all of this? Like, what is happening? And from
yeah,
my perspective, I'm looking at the Grand Canyon.
yeah,
I mean, from what we see, and that's what I want to impart and pass on to you.
mm,
When I hear what you're doing, when I see what you're doing, it's a much different perspective than you could ever really have.
I
So
know.
what you have to keep doing it because we love it, and
Thank you.
it looks so good. Like, you look good doing it and you sound good doing it. So I always want to make sure to illuminate that other side. It's almost like the other side of the moon that you can't see.
Yeah.
You can get it in metrics and likes and like, ways to get it, but unless someone just like looks you in the eye and says, "Hey, Alain, like you're doing it and it's good and it's what you should be doing." I think it's important for you guys to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate that. I mean, it's definitely true. And like, um, I was really struck when I'm a big LCD Sound System fan, and they were talking about, how they were going to do their, another one of their residencies, I think like right after lockdown had started to kind of lift or whatever. And
Hmm.
I think James Murphy was just kind of saying like, we don't know if people still care about us, like we have no idea. And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, it's like this thing that I'm doing is it's going pretty well. I'm pretty happy with like, the sort of the small victories and successes that I've had so far. But it's also like nothing about the day to day of my life changes. It's, like I'm still just like sitting in my house being like, well, it's like I, look at some numbers on a screen and I'm like twiddling my thumbs and I'm like, do people care? I don't know. Like I'm just here, with
Yeah.
in my house with my cat, just hanging, it's like you don't know. You don't know if people care or
Mhm.
not. You don't know how many people care. And I think of so many bands that I love. I've never like told them, I've never sent them a message. You don't have
Right.
everyone in the world just being like, hey, just to let you know, we still love your band. Like
Yeah.
it's it's funny like that. But
It-
kind of completely side note, I think one of my favorite statistics, or one of my my favorite numbers that I've found is that there were like 70 people that Shazammed my stuff, and
wow.
that to me is like, the Shazam, because you have no connection to the music. You're just like, oh, what is this? You're just hearing it somewhere. So I don't know. And I do it all the time. I'm like, oh, what's this cool song? So like that to me was meaningful, even though
Yeah.
maybe that's not a significant number to some, maybe it is to others. I don't really know. But it's just,
I
a
agree.
personal victory.
I think Shazam is an interesting angle to look at. I've never heard anyone really bring that up before, but it is an interesting angle because think about when I Shazam things too. Think about we're either like sitting in a waiting room, we are absolutely just living our lives. We're not necessarily like driving in the car because now everything tells you what it is. So we are away from being with music on purpose and we're just living our little lives. And then we hear something and maybe two measures of a song perks our ear and makes us go, whoa, wait a second, let me stop,
Yeah.
and I have to pull up my phone and I have to know who that is. I feel like I'd be really interested to dive into people's Shazam numbers. Now I'm
Yeah.
like super curious because it's
Yeah.
meaningful. It's
Yeah.
meaningful.
Yeah, it's like how much without any, sort of information about like your style, what you look like, what your
Yeah.
personality is, any personal connection to you, without any of that, how much do people off of just hearing the music want to actually like pursue the interest in it, not just be like, oh, that was nice, maybe I'll just hear it again someday, but actually like go after it and pursue it and invest time into finding out what it is. It's like it's a significant thing. So yeah.
Well, congrats on that. I think that
Thanks.
would make me feel really good.
Yeah, I was psyched about it. I was like 73 people were like, what's this?
That's so cool. It'd be
So
really great is if Shazam, maybe it has it, I don't remember. But if when you Shazam it and you see the person that it is, if it could, can it take you right to like Spotify or some sort of streaming to count that number of like, ooh, from the person who Shazammed me, who
oh yeah.
who then went to go like be able to save my song, or you know what I
Yeah,
mean? That'd be kind of cool.
maybe there's some way to track that, but I'm not very good at all that back end stuff. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
no. It's a rabbit hole, but I'm just saying
yeah.
it's interesting information. Um, you have been putting out music pretty steadily over last year and this year?
Mm.
What's your strategy? And it's all so good. So I really want people to go and listen to it. What's your strategy with putting out music? You know, the industry is so different these days compared to, you know, when we were in our 20s. And you know, what are you thinking with that?
It's just basically sort of like pursuing the idea of like releasing as many singles as possible. You
Love
know,
that.
both to kind of like try and take advantage of like algorithmic kind of stuff and Spotify playlisting and whatnot. And also just sort of like, you know, the way that things now are just sort of like, um, is the term, I think the term is maybe like attention economy, where, you know, it's just sort of like, it's not so much like you release this one great thing and then it like, you know, spans over a great length of time. It's just sort of like, you know, getting people's attention is just sort of like constantly like being present, really, you
Mhm,
know, to put it into kind of like, you know, psychological and spiritual terms.
mhm,
um yeah, you know, just sort of like continuing to show up
mhm,
and show your face and say things and be releasing things,
mhm,
um, which is, you know, something I like am not good at naturally. So like having a game plan to do it makes me actually do it.
mm, mhm,
Because like, you know, if it were just up to me, like if I just had an Instagram for my personal life, I don't really think I would use it that much.
true.
You
Yeah,
know,
same.
like I'm not going to use, you know, social media if I don't have something to promote. And, you know, so having the music and being like, I'm releasing this thing every so often and taking pictures around it and having video and people reposting it and stuff, then it's like, okay, like I, you know, it's like,
Mhm,
it's a discipline. Whereas like, you know, I think maybe for some people, they just kind of more naturally are just like, oh, this is a funny thing, I'm just going to post it. It's like more of just like a genuinely social kind of thing and communal
mhm,
kind of thing. But I find it hard to speak up in that conversation and to like raise my voice in that conversation and be like, I have something to say, you know, I have input. So like having this consistent practice of it, of like a promotion plan and a release strategy,
mhm.
is, you know, the only way to get myself to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's okay too. You know what I mean? I think there's all different types of ways to approach social media. We talk about it a lot on this show because it is sort of a necessary evil, you know, when it comes to it. I have to do it too.
Mm,
Um, uh, it can be really kind of like a full-time job, you know, to
mm,
and then sometimes it's just like it's too much, you know, you just kind of want to take a break. But I also really appreciate the people kind of like yourself that like are more not more about the work, but just that that put more just kind of on doing your thing. You know what I mean? Like less fluff, just keep it simple. And I think that suits kind of how you show up and what you do and the way that you write and the way your songs are and everything that you say in your songs feels really intentional, really purposeful. So I feel like that's kind of to use the term on brand, you know what I mean? Even if it's like that's just who you are and that's just what you do.
yeah.
Um, I want to talk a little bit about Worse for Wear because you just released that. Congratulations. I think it was two weeks ago, maybe to the
Yeah.
day that we're talking.
Yeah.
That you released that song and you did a show at Mohawk. How did that go?
That went great. I think we
Yeah,
sold like 100 tickets.
that's
Um,
awesome.
Yeah, like even the people at the venue were kind of surprised at the end of the night. They were like, "Well, the indoors shows sold 100 tickets." But
I
yeah,
love
no, it went great. We had you know, we had body tape and witches exist. Which, you know, I was like very intentional of like I want to put a really cool bill together. You know, I don't want to just, you know, get bands of people, either people that I know or like bands with big numbers. I want to do bands that like I think are cool and also sort of like work within enough of a similar genre
Yeah.
where like, you know, if I was a person just looking at what shows are playing this week, I would be like, oh, these three bands are playing together. I have to go to this show because I want to see all these three
Yeah.
in one bill. That's kind of like, you know, if I'm booking, putting together a bill, that's how I want to think about it.
Hmm.
Because I think that's mostly what's going to really motivate people to come out to something, you know.
Well, yeah, we don't want to we want to maximize our time again in this sort of attention economy. That's I mean, and but I think even if this were 20 years ago, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I want my money's worth kind of thing, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Um, but yeah, it went well, and we had, you know, help from Howdy Gals, um, who got on board with the promotion and stuff, and you know, did flyers and posters and stuff.
So fun.
So yeah, you know, sort of like first time I'm like, okay, let's take this promotion thing seriously.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it went great. It was a really fun show. You know, I mean, I think back to the first show that I did with this project in Austin, and like some of the video from it, I'm literally shaking. Like by
Mhm.
the last song, my whole body's just shaking, and I can't even hold the mic straight. Like
Wow.
my hand is just shaking, and it kind of worked because you know you can kind of use that energy and put it into the performance, and then you know I'm kind of this weird jittery character on stage.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like I want to think of myself as like, you know, this like suave, sexy, masculine man, but I think I end up coming across more like a kind of David Byrne character most of the time. Just kind of like a little aloof and gangly and, you know, a little bit offbeat. But I don't know.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree. I can see where I can see where you from your angle kind of could go there, but you also have just such like your eyes and your face, you just have such a beautiful like engagement of like eye contact, you know, just the way you look also is just very mysterious and it is sexy and masculine. And I think when you do move around like that, it's it makes it, to me it goes like it elevates what I think your level of confidence is, and it just makes it even like sexier in a way, you know what I mean?
Well,
So
thank you. And that's good to hear. I appreciate that.
yeah, no, it's you actually
The
seem
confidence disparity is
I know,
pretty
but
funny though.
isn't that the trippy thing is like we could be shaking nervous, but when people watch us, they're so all in and rooting that we don't
Mm,
go to that place in our minds of like, oh gosh, they must be nervous. No, we're like, they're fucking killing it. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah,
we need to remember that 99.9% of the people watching us are rooting for us. Like they're already in. They bought the ticket, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But I want you to know how you come across because I think you are so interesting. Your music is interesting. You look interesting. The way you move is interesting. And that's like my favorite. That's my favorite. And there's no, you remind me of no one. I could see the David Byrne thing in your, with your ego in your head thing, you know, but like, I mean, we all have that. But you are one of one in my eyes.
I'm gonna like frame that quote. You remind me of no one. I love that.
Yeah.
Like specifically out of context, I like it. I like it both in context and out of
Take it.
context.
Take
Makes
it.
me
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah. Yeah. So how did you feel that night at the Mohawk? Fast forward compared to your first show. Do you feel
I
it in
mean,
your body?
every single one of my shows, you know, I think a part of the hard thing of getting used to as a performer is just the fact that it's going to be like this every time, where it's just like completely unstable. And every single show within the first three songs, I'm like, well, I'm bombing. You know, I'm just
Oh,
like this is going terribly. Like, what's going on? Or it's just like I don't know. Like, I'm not a chemistry guy, but I feel like, you know, so a kind of like chemical that's like unstable or something, or like a
right.
kind of unknown quantity. Like
Yeah.
it's just, you know, you're starting off and you're like, what it this feels very tenuous. I don't know how it's going to go. It can go in any direction. And we're all sort of like on this shaky footing trying to figure each other out. And I'm
Yeah.
like, are people not into this? What's going on? And I also kind of like structure my sets in a way where it's like the first couple songs are the ones that are like less physically active for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, shaking my fist at the audience quite as much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, usually by the second to the last song, I'll have it kind of figured out of like what our relationship is, between me and the audience.
Yeah, I would imagine it's different every time, where it's like you kind of have to feel each other out. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
we're gonna have a guest for the interview. It's just me.
oh yes. Is it a boy or girl?
It's a girl. Her name is Zoe. She's
Hi.
kind of both simultaneously my daughter and my grandmother, just in her persona.
I love that.
Um,
So
yeah,
Um, that's awesome. Well, I agree with you. I mean, even doing what I do, I have to kind of throw it away. I don't know, like, you and I don't know each other. Um, and I just kind of have to go, I just don't know how this is going to go. But I know that I genuinely want to talk to you. You genuinely want to perform that night, right? When you're doing a
yeah.
show. And I think that's just what we have
Some,
to sink our hooks into, right? It's just like, hey, dummy, this is what I say to myself. Like, don't forget you actually like doing this. You know what I
yeah,
mean? If I ever catch myself having a moment like that, it's like, this is what we love. We love talking to people that we find interesting,
yeah,
but it's a lot of stimuli to kind of take in,
yeah. And
on
it's just sort of
stage.
like, like sort of thinking about the idea that it's possible that no matter how big you get, this sort of like instability every time is just going to be there.
Yeah,
And that feeling during those like 45 minutes
yeah,
is just, it's always going to be just as shaky. And like,
yeah,
like for whatever success you've had, you start at zero every time.
yeah,
Like every time you get on stage, you're starting and you're in front of a new crowd, you're starting at zero. It doesn't matter what came before. You're just, building your way up from nothing into the end of your set, which,
yeah,
might have people cheering for you, might have people leaving the room or just somewhere in between.
yeah. I think there's some comfort that we can find in that, knowing that like you're so not experiencing this alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That you're not alone. And also that you don't have to have any other expectations of yourself. You're not failing if that's what's happening. That's
Yeah.
just the game. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, and it's just this moment too. Like again, I was talking to someone last night in an interview and she's really big on the fact that like we are human beings and in any given minute I can have the most random feeling or experience or nuanced whatever, and to be able to hold it all and let it all be okay, right? And
Yeah.
just to really let life happen, to do that on stage is a big ask, but it's possible just to really be up there and go like, it's going to be what it's supposed to be. Why? Because this is the moment we're having. This is it.
Yeah.
And so let's just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes a lot of kind of what drives my performance is the fact that I'm like, I think it's kind of not going well. So I just hit a point where I'm just kind of like, fuck it.
Fuck it.
Or,
Yes.
just like, Jesus, take the wheel, like
Yeah.
I'm just gonna kind of throw it out there and like not even expect anything back either. I'm just gonna do, and that's sort of like, so, I've talked to a lot of performers where it's like it's hard to like make eye contact with people in the audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's like a whole weird thing. But now I'm almost sort of being like, well, like what if I'm just like almost trying to make people uncomfortable? Like what if I'm just like, no, I'm gonna stare at you, and if you feel weird, well, I don't, maybe I mean to do that. Like
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah. I think, I think you push, you find those little places to push. And if doing that kind of lessens the pressure, it kind of lets the steam out of the pot, out of like the anxiety pot, or, the pot that we sort of want to be emptied, do that, because you can do anything you want. Again, they bought the ticket. They're there. They're cheering you. Like, they're giving you the benefit of the doubt. You got to
yeah,
really fuck it up to lose to lose them when they're
yeah,
there. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, I would say play around with that and have fun with that. I think that's cool. And because it's you, and I know the way that you move and sing and all the things that you do, I just think it would make you more interesting. You know what I mean?
hopefully. Yeah. Well, I I think I've joked with friends before that like people talk about having cute aggression
Mhm.
where they, this cute animal and they have a weird aggressive feeling towards it. I think I have like performance aggression sometimes where I'm like, I want to like impress this audience. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna get kind of mad and like like just work that into my performance, like, kind of throw a performance tantrum in a way of just like,
I love that.
hey, everyone pay attention to me, love me. I don't know, something like that.
I love it. If anyone can pull it off, it's you for sure.
I appreciate that vote of confidence.
It's all over here. I'll remind you anytime you want me to. Um, what do you have before we wrap it up? What do you have on the horizon? What are you looking forward to these days? What's kind of, I know you just had a big release show, so you're probably kind of taking a bit of a breath, but what else do you kind of have going on?
So, well, for one, I just put up the lyric video today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's on YouTube, and then in another 2 weeks, there's going to be a music video,
Mhm. The
and
one that I
then
saw, the one that I snuck.
yeah, the sneak peek, secret VIP club, um, and then we're approaching album time.
Really?
Yeah, it's well, not soon, but there's a couple more singles that are going to go with it, but there may be. I guess I should be more mysterious about this. I don't have, a management team telling me that I can't say this or I can't say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have an album. It's done, and you know,
Congrats.
I don't. I will be announcing an actual date at some point in the future, but it'll be a little while, but it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, no, take your time. I think you give us enough to chew on. Like, you can definitely hold off on that
Yeah,
for a little while. Well, that's exciting. I mean, that's a big deal. It's like having a baby.
yeah, just as terrifying, just as much postpartum depression.
Exactly. Exactly. What's the best way for people to support you? I always like asking people that. I think it's important for people that are watching to hear that straight from you. What's the best way?
Um, whatever, people, whatever dealer's choice, I guess, is sort of just like follow me on social media, listen to my music, buy my stuff, come to a show, um, or just tell people about me. I mean,
Yeah.
buying shirts is great because then, like you're wearing it around and you're like, hey, like
Yeah.
this band's pretty cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, whatever, just, I don't know. I feel like if people like it, then they'll just kind of do something
Own it.
intrinsically without thinking about it too much.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Yeah. And you tell your favorite bands that you love them. I think if more
yeah,
people did that, I think it'd be really, really cool if people just said how they were feeling in general in all types of relationships. But yeah, I think it's important to do that.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, goodness, thank you, Alain, for coming on. I said your name right every single time
you
during this
did.
interview. I
Knocked it out of
nailed it. I know. I'm going to come see you live and then I'm going to ruin it.
the park.
We'll keep on the good streak. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so much for coming on. It's really nice to meet you. I mean, every word that I said, I love what you do. It's so, you remind me of no one. You are absolutely one of one, and don't stop. Just keep going. That's your
Well, thank
homework.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, and thank you for what you do also, and actually investing in knowing more about artists and what we do and everything.
It's my pleasure. You guys are important. And I want more for you. And I think about you guys all the time and how can we, define what musicians need? How can we set that up in our societal and, market structures? And I mean,
Mm,
I really think that when shit gets hard, you are who we go to.
yeah.
And so you are at the top of the pyramid in my world. So it's a pleasure to do it for you. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, we have to say goodbye, but that does it for this episode of the Austin Downbeat with Alain Paradis from Holy Wire. You can check him out on wherever you stream music. He has a great website too called at holywiremusic.com. Like him, follow him, share him, tell him how much you love him. Go to his shows, wear his shirts. And we will see you guys next time. Thanks again, Elaine.
Thank you.